السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله على إحسانه والشكر له على تفضله وامتنانه، ولا إله إلا الله تعظيما لشأنه، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله داعي إلى رضوانه وعلى آله وأصحابه وإخوانه أما بعد. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, we are continuing with our lecture series regarding the signs of the Day of Judgment. The Prophet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَقَدْ جَاءَ أَشْرَاطُهَا, that verily the signs of the Day of Judgment have appeared. Sign number 35 from the signs of the Day of Judgment. Sign number 35 from the signs of the Day of Judgment. التماس العلم عند الأصاغر. التماس العلم عند الأصاغر. People will start taking Islamic knowledge from the small ones. The small ones. What is the meaning of the small ones? We shall look at this later on, inshallah. The Prophet ﷺ, he says in the authentic hadith, as narrated by Abdullah ibn Mubarak in his book Az-Zuhd and Imam Tabarani al-Kabir, he says from the hadith of Abu Umayyah al-Jumahi, قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن من أشراط الساعة ثلاثا وذكر منها التماس العلم عند الأصاغر. He says عليه الصلاة والسلام that three signs of the Day of Judgment will appear, and he mentioned from these three signs people will be taking knowledge from the small ones. From the small ones. What is the meaning of asaghir in the hadith? Asaghir in the Arabic language, saghir means small. But what was the meaning the Prophet ﷺ intended? Imam Abdullah ibn Mubarak al-Marwazi was asked عن الأصاغر فقال الذين يقولون برأيهم. They are the ones who say regarding the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their opinion. I think this is halal. I think this is haram. I think this should be like this. They say their religion with their opinion. It is like this religion was brought by them, not by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How dare you speak with your opinion and you have the Quran of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How dare you speak with your opinion and you have the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى, and he does not speak out of desire. Ikhwani fillah, we have to speak when it comes to the issues of religion based on the Quran, based on the sunnah. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تُقَدِّمُوا بَيْنَ يَدَيْ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. If you read Surah Al-Hujurat, the surah regarding akhlaq, the surah regarding manners, the very first manners that's required from you as a Muslim, Ikhwani, is never keep yourself before Allah and His Messenger. Always ask, what does Allah say about this issue? What does the Prophet ﷺ say this about this issue? Don't say my opinion. Don't say my opinion. Ikhwani fillah, a second meaning of the word asaghir on this hadith is taking from the people of innovation, the people of desire. Some people from the Muslims, whatever they feel is their religion is what they take to be their religion, not what the best generations were following. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, خَيْرُ الْقُرُونِ قَرْنِي ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ. He says, the best generation are the Sahaba, then the Tabi'een, then the Atba' Tabi'een. You should follow the same religion that the students of the Prophet ﷺ were upon, the same religion that the Tabi'een took from the Sahaba, the same religion the Atba' Tabi'een took from the Tabi'een, took from the Sahaba, took from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who took it from Jibril, who took it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the chain of narration for us as Muslims. Not that I am following this path because inna wajadna aba'ana ala ummah. Because I found my fathers doing this, I follow this path. I don't care if my fathers are on the correct or on the wrong, I follow this path. Then if you're following the path of your fathers, if you're following the path of your ancestors, then take yourself to the paradise of your ancestors and your fathers if they have a paradise. You want the paradise of Allah? Follow the way of Allah. وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا. This is the path of Allah, the straight path. Every prayer, 17 times, you say, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Oh Allah, guide me to the straight path. Whose path is it? Is it the path that you found your fathers or your evil sheikhs, or the sheikhs who had no knowledge? Or is it the path of Allah? Or is it the path of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam? Ikhwani fillah, from the signs of the Day of Judgment, iltimasul ilmi inda al-asagir. People be taking knowledge from people who do not have the status of giving it. Are you together? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, one of the greats of the Sahaba, he says, ما يزال الناس بخير ما أتاهم العلم من الصحابة ثم من أكابرهم. The people will not cease to be in a state of good as long as they are taking knowledge from the Sahaba of Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and from the Akabir, the ones who are elderly when it comes to knowledge, not elderly when it comes to age. Age does not matter. What matters is the status of knowledge. Ikhwani fillah, if you look at something called ilm al-hadith, of all the knowledge in Islam that we have, the widest of all is ilm al-hadith, the study of hadith. I was telling a brother today, and there's a gathering here, ilm al-hadith, you can study for 300 years, 400 years, you shall never reach the end of ilm al-hadith. This is the widest sector or category of knowledge in Islam. Are you together? I've even lost my train of thought. From ilm hadith, there's a knowledge called riwayatul akabir an asagir. It happens that some scholars, they take from people who are below them. Below them in age, or below them in status, or below them in rank. And the greatest example we have, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Every single hadith that we know of, as-Sahaba narrates, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. The narration is from Sahaba to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Those are the levels. But we have one hadith in particular where the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is narrating from a Sahabi. The hadith of Tamim al-Dari. Tamim al-Dari, he went, a long story, he reached an island that was left and he saw the Jassas and he saw the Masih al-Dajjal. So the Prophet ﷺ narrates this hadith from someone who is lower than him in rank. But this is allowed because that was a person who had knowledge. You have, for example, the Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As, Abdullah ibn Umar. These three are known as the Abadila, the Abdullahs. Is it Abdullahs? I've become Somali. The Abdullahs. These three Abdullahs, they narrate from a tabi'i called Ka'ab al-Ahbar. Sahaba narrating from a tabi'i. You have Imam Malik, Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari is tabi'i, and he narrates from Imam Malik ibn Anas, who is atba' tabi'i. This is allowed because people have knowledge despite them being below them in tabaqa, in level, or in age, or in status. That is allowed from the ilm of hadith. Ikhwani fillah, one of the most important things for us as Muslims is to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised our status because of this Islamic knowledge. If you look at history, in the 6th century of the Christian calendar, this was a period in the age of Europe known as the Dark Ages. Science was forbidden in Europe. Knowledge was forbidden. Only follow what the Bible says. It was forbidden. Over 95% of Europeans, they could not read, they could not write. Illiterate. Some of them didn't even have a language. They communicate with signs. And they were the dirtiest and filthiest of societies because they did not know the benefit of taking a bath, taking a shower. They used to think that the dirt on the body, they used to think that the dirt on their body protects them from disease. This is the 6th century Europe. The same time also in the Arabian Peninsula, they were in a period of shirk, of dalal, of darkness. This period is known as the times of Jahiliyyah, the days of ignorance. Everyone in the world was in a state of ignorance except for a few people that you can count with the fingers. Then the Prophet ﷺ, Allah's mercy to this world, he came. And the very first words he came with was read. The very first words he comes with is the pen. The first words he comes with is knowledge. He says, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علمه بالقلم. Alhamdulillah, my name is in the first surah that was revealed in the Quran. The pen, knowledge and recitation. These are the very first things. When the Muslims started seeing this, what do? They started seeking knowledge. All knowledge. The hadith, the Quran, the fiqh, everything. Then they left also that. They started seeking knowledge in medicine, engineering, physics, astronomy, until the Ikhwani Fillah, Muslims were the pinnacle, the top of society for most of history. We are the ones that caused the civilization of Europe and most of the world because of this talab al-ilm that we had. Why? Because when we recite the Quran, we hear and we listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ, that verily the ones who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most are the scholars. The ones who fear Allah the most are the scholars. Why? The scholars, they say, مَنْ كَانَ بِاللَّهِ أَعْرَفْ كَانَ مِنْهُ أَخْوَفْ. Whoever fears Allah the most, whoever knows Allah the most is the one who will fear Allah the most. If you know Allah more, you will fear Him more, you'll also love Him more. And such, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has raised the level of the scholar. يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He has raised the levels of the scholars, of the believers, to the highest levels, and of the scholars even higher, even higher. The scholars' level is so high that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept them together in the greatest witness, the greatest shahada, the greatest witness in the entire Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala witnesses by Himself, and so do the angels, and so do the scholars. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, شَهِدَ اللَّهُ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُ وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ وَأُولُو الْعِلْمِ قَائِمًا بِالْقِسْطِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala witnesses that there's no deity worthy of worship except Himself. And so do the angels, and so do the people of knowledge. Look at how Allah has raised the status. Shahada, He's kept them in a witness with Himself, with the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As such, no one is equal to the scholar. No one is equal to the scholar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Say, are equal the ones who know and the ones who do not know? They're not equal. They are not equal. If you look at the Quran, the only part in the entire Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you to make dua, to seek an increase of something, is to seek increase of knowledge. وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. And say, oh my Lord, increase me in knowledge. Not in children, not in wealth, not in anything else. Oh Allah, increase me in knowledge. Knowledge raises your status, as you mentioned, very high. You have scholars who died 1,300 years ago. We still remember them to this day. We make dua for them till this day. And they died 1,300 years ago, 1,200 years ago, 1,000 years ago. And to this day we remember them. You have someone like Imam Abu Hanifa. Who does not know Imam Abu Hanifa? And Nu'man ibn Thabit died in the year 150 of the Hijri calendar. You have one of the greatest scholars of hadith, Shu'bah ibn Hajjaj al-Ataqi, dies 160. We still remember him. Sufyan al-Thawri, 161. We still remember him. Imam Malik ibn Anas, 179. Imam Abdullah ibn Mubarak al-Marwazi, 181. Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan, Abdurrahman al-Mahdi, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, 198. Imam Shafi'i, 204. Imam Ahmad, 241. Bukhari, 256. 261. Imam Muslim. All these scholars, you remember them. Imam Nawawi, 676. Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, 728. We can continue to mention them until Shaykh ibn Baz, 1420. Ibn Uthaymin, 1421. Albani, 1420. Scholars that have passed away, but they're still alive with us through their knowledge. This knowledge has raised them. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, "Man yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fid din." If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good upon you, He gives knowledge of the religion. So this knowledge, ikhwani fillah, is your religion. This knowledge is your religion. إنما هذا العلم دين فانظروا عمن تأخذون دينكم. The scholars, they say, this ilm of deen is your religion. So look and be careful where you take your knowledge from. Do not take knowledge from this asagir, these people who are not of that status. And from the asagir we have these days is Google. Google is from the asagir. Definitely it's from the asagir. You want to look for answers and you just go Google it, yet you do not have the tools required as a student of knowledge to understand what is given to you. You're going to get lost. Come to the mosque. Come to the sheikhs who are known for their uprightness in their religion and in their character and their witness to by other sheikhs that is a true sheikh. Take knowledge from them. You go to Google and you search for tafsir and you get some excellent words of tafsir, but you do not realize that tafsir is from the Shia, or it's from the Mu'tazila, or it's from the Khawarij, or it's from different sects that have their own agenda. Ikhwani fillah, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, من سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله له به طريقا الجنة. Whoever seeks this path of knowledge, true knowledge, seeking the true knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make their path to Jannah easy. And he continues, he says, وإن طالب علم يستغفر له من في السماء والأرض حتى الحيتان في الماء. Everything in the heavens and in the earth will make istighfar for the person seeking knowledge, as you are doing right now. The angels of Allah in the heavens and everything on the earth, حتى الحيتان في الماء, even the fish that is in the ocean, make istighfar for you as a person seeking knowledge. وإن فضل العالم على العابد كفضل القمر على سائر الكواكب. And the status of a scholar compared to the one who makes a lot of ibadah is like the moon when it is brightest on the 15th of the month compared to the other stars. When the moon is bright, can you see the stars? You cannot see the stars. That is the status of the scholar compared to the worshipper. The Prophet ﷺ, he says that this ilm is an inheritance. وإن الأنبياء لم يورثوا دينارا ولا درهما وإنما ورثوا العلم فمن أخذه أخذ بحظ وافر. That the prophets, when they passed away, they did not leave any money. Prophet ﷺ did not leave any money for us. How much do you have from Prophet Muhammad? From money? You don't have anything. But they left knowledge. And whoever takes this knowledge is from the one who has inherited from the Prophet ﷺ. You want to be amongst the people who inherit from Prophet ﷺ, seek knowledge from the scholars who have sought it from the scholars, who have sought it from the scholars, from the tabi'in, from the sahaba, from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. That is the greatest of inheritance. Ikhwani fillah, this knowledge is so great that the Prophet ﷺ, he says, فضل العالم على العابد كفضلي على أدناكم. He says the status of a scholar compared to the worshipper is like my status compared to the lowest Muslim. The status of a scholar compared to a worshipper is like me, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, compared to the lowest Muslim. Is there any comparison? Is there any comparison? Ikhwani fillah, Muslims, when they read these verses in the Quran and they read these hadiths, what did they start doing? They started seeking knowledge. They started going for talab al-ilm, seeking, oh Allah, I want to worship you with basira. I want to worship you with knowledge. I don't want to be thrown left, right and center by these fake sheikhs. There are some fake sheikhs, honestly. There are people who speak out of desires. People who speak to please other of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People who speak, they do not want to please Allah, they want to please the creation. And let these people, they will have lost the pleasure of Allah, and Allah will make sure that they will lose the pleasure of the creation. So they will khasir ad-dunya wal akhirah. They will lose in dunya and they shall lose in akhirah. You have a man, Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu anhu. Umar ibn Khattab, is one of the greatest of Islam. He says that I had a companion from the tribe of Banu Umayyah al-Makhzumi, Banu Umayyah al-Ansari. Says that this man, one day he goes to the Prophet ﷺ to seek knowledge. That day I go work. In the evening I come and I meet him and he gives me what he was taught. Next day he goes to look for work. I sit with the Prophet ﷺ. When it comes to evening, we teach each other. This is Umar al-Khattab seeking knowledge. You have some of them, they used to travel great distances just for one hadith. Just one for hadith. Jabir ibn Abdullah radhiallahu anhu, one day he purchases a camel in Medina, he stocks it, and he travels to Syria. He knocks at the door of the Sahabi Abdullah ibn Unais, and they ask, who's at the door? He says, Jabir ibn Abdullah. He rushes to the door, tells him, Jabir, why did you come? Come in, I welcome you. No, I only came from one hadith that you heard from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I feared that I will die or you will die before I hear this hadith. Please tell me. One hadith. He traveled a distance of 1 month. Another Sahabi, Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, travels the same way, purchases a camel, stocks it. He goes all the way to Egypt for one hadith from the Sahabi Uqba ibn Amir radhiallahu anhu. People used to seek knowledge, travel great distances. Sometimes they will leave their family for years just because of seeking knowledge. You have a man, Abdurrahman ibn al-Qasim, rahimahullah. This man, he marries his cousin, and the cousin gets pregnant. So he decides, let me go seek knowledge. And the person who's most knowledgeable in dunya at the time is Imam Malik, Imam of the people of Medina. So he decides to go to Malik. Says the wife, I'm going to travel to seek knowledge. I want to learn, what is Allah telling me? What is the Prophet telling me? I want to learn my religion. And I want to take my knowledge from the people who have that status and that rank like Imam Malik. So he says to the wife, I'm going to stay for very long, I don't know how long. I give you the option. You can either stay in marriage and be patient, or I can give you a divorce, and after iddah you can get married to another man. The wife says, I shall be patient, I shall wait for you. Imam Abdurrahman ibn al-Qasim, he goes to Medina. 1 year passes, he's not back. 2 years, 3 years, 15 years, 17 years have passed, he has not come back to Egypt. One day the Hujjaj from Egypt, they come for Hajj. A group of them comes to the Prophet Mosque in Medina. Then a young man whose face was covered, he goes to the gathering of Imam Malik. He greets Imam Malik and he says to them, Afikum Ibn al-Qasim, is amongst you Ibn al-Qasim? They say, Naam, that's Ibn al-Qasim. So this young man goes and he starts hugging the Imam Abdurrahman al-Qasim. Abdurrahman al-Qasim says, Wallahi, from the hug and the smell, I knew this was my child. I had not seen him for over 17 years. I left him when he was in his mother's womb. 17 years seeking this knowledge, to know what is halal, what is haram, to know that this is the path to Jannah and that is the path of hellfire. I'm not going to follow that path, I'm going to follow that path. 17 years seeking the knowledge of religion from the people who are worthy to seek from. Khanifillah, the people, they used to seek knowledge even if they were late. Some people, you have a man called Salih ibn Kaysan, one of the most strongest students of Imam Muhammad ibn Shihab al-Zuhri is this man Salih ibn Kaysan. He started seeking knowledge when he was 70 years. 70 years. Who is 70 years in the mosque? Yeah. Over there. There's no one who's very close. Because 70. Alhamdulillah. Kama unahesabu umri labda sijui ya kuku labda. طيب. You have another man, Ibrahim al-Harbi, started seeking knowledge when he was 40. You have another man, Al-Kisai. You know the Quran has different ways of reciting. It has different ways of recitation of the Quran. So there are scholars of qira'at. The most famous qira'at are 7 of them. Amongst the Qurra is this man Al-Kisai. This man started seeking knowledge when he was maybe 50 or 60 plus. One day, I think he was looking after livestock or something. He was looking after camels and goats. Then a woman was passing with a child, telling the child, if you don't Be backward with your education, you shall be like that man. You shall be like Al-Kisai. Al-Kisai says to himself, أَمِثْلِ يُضْرَبْ بِهِ الْمَثَلِ, I have become an example of stupidity and ignorance. Then he starts seeking the knowledge. It was difficult for him initially. Then one day he was sitting on a tree. He sees how the ants carry weights that are heavier than it. And he started seeking knowledge. And he became not only the scholar of Quran, also the scholar of Arabic language. This is the second greatest scholar when it comes to Arabic language. There are two madrasas when it comes to Arabic language. There's the madrasa of the people of Kufa and the madrasa of the people of Basra. The greatest scholar when it comes to Arabic grammar is a man called Sibawayh. And the second greatest is this man, Al-Kisai. People were seeking knowledge. Yes, there are difficulties. Of course, there's nothing easy. You have some people who died while seeking knowledge. You have people, Ibn Tahir al-Maqdisi, he says, شربت البول في هذا الشأن مرتين. He says, I traveled great distances. I was so thirsty that I had no choice except to drink my own urine on two separate occasions because I have no water, nothing. Seeking the knowledge. One day, the companions of Imam Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari, who passed away in the year 256 of the Hijri calendar, the one who has the most authentic book after the book of Allah, they did not find him in class. Wondering, where is Bukhari? Bukhari is not here around today. They go search for him in Baghdad and they find him in his house and he barely has any clothes. He had sold his clothes just to get food. So they gave him some money as a debt and he paid back. People went through difficulties for seeking this knowledge. Ikhwani fillah, this is the message for tonight. From the signs of the day of judgment is people shall be seeking knowledge from people who have no status, who have no position to give it. Seek knowledge from the people who are qualified to do it.